Well,
Do
here
you
we
know
go
what?
on us. Oh yeah, do you know what? Lee's
No, I
ripped it off
wasn't going to
already.
drink. I wasn't going to drink. You know what? Sod it. It's been one of those weeks. So sorry, boys. Didn't mean to interrupt.
Anyway, a free-flowing start here. I was about to say a sunny afternoon here in the foothills of the Dunstable Downs. Hopefully the same wherever you are in St Albans. Well, here we are on Wednesday the 9th of... No, it's not. 4th of September. It's 09. Oh, that's a month. 2024. We're looking back on two games for the Saints. Last week we looked back on two defeats. This week we're looking back... Oh, two defeats. With myself, David Tavener, already drinking Leewood.
David, Jacob, everyone, how are we?
We're sort of okay. But
Mm.
Jacob is Jake Ellacott.
Hello, everyone. It's one of our smoother starts, isn't it? It's fair to say.
We could be the team, couldn't we? We really could. Right. We start off at well, actually at Cherrywood Road last Saturday, which caught some people out because somebody texted me Saturday morning and said it's a game off because it was due to be at Clarence Park, wasn't it, in the original fixture list? Um, I've been told one reason why it was changed. Anybody got a firm reason for it?
Even if we did, it would be no better than yours. Off you go, Tabs.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's very well known because we had a rush of home games at the end of the start of the season because the Worthing game should have been away from home. Their ground was closed. So we had a rush of home games, and the owners apparently were concerned that the high number of games was hitting attendances, so therefore hitting income. Bearing in mind, 50% of their income comes from the bars and the food things around the ground, so they didn't want that damaging attendances. And of course, results and performances wouldn't hit attendances at all. Anyway, that's why it was switched to Cherrywood Road. It just means at the end of the season, we got 4 consecutive home games, late March, early April, which is fantastic, perfect for our promotion push. Cherrywood Road. Neither of you were there. You were lucky ones. It's a funny old game. We competed, but it wasn't great on the eye. We had some sort of chances. Sam Deadfield had a powerful shot pushed over. Zane Banton came up with one of the great misses of the season. Sean Jeffers went try to equal it, I think. From close in, he couldn't get any power into his shot. But we just didn't create anything. Not a lot has changed from previous games. The best part of it was meeting Colin Lippiat's wife, Frances, and their son, Rob, I think. Apart from that, wasn't much to remember. There was one change from midweek because Kieran Gautier sort of rested, put on the bench, which led to Phil Chinadu, 17-year-old from Leyton Orient, coming in for his debut, originally with Blackburn Rovers Academy. He's quite something. He turns 18 next month. He's as tall as a giraffe. He's as strong as an ox, and he can play football too. He looks a very useful prospect. We've got him for 28 days, and he should help us down our left-hand side there a bit. As I say, the game, it never really kicked off. Farnborough over 90 minutes, probably just about shaded the points. They certainly felt that they did. And as long as we don't score goals, we're not going to get anything out of games. All right, we did create some chances, but he's going to run into the Tuesday's game. This lack of goals, why we're not getting them. What have you two picked up about the games since then?
Well, I think Saturday, I think the goals is an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, like you said, we had what, 2 really, really arguably golden opportunities. We're not taking those. Sean's, as I said, maybe too close in, but the Zane one, does that show that we are a team just very low on confidence at the minute? Don't believe in ourselves. I know some people say we're very unlucky at the minute, and I think we are in a sense, and we do create these chances, but we are still losing games. It's now 7 now with only 1 point from them. And Saturday's game, it almost felt, watching it from afar. I was in a pub watching the Twitter feed, getting some updates. It just felt inevitable the way the game was unfortunately going. The longer and longer there was a 0-0, it was like, I have a bad feeling about this. And when that eventual goal, even though it was late, and what a hell of a goal it looks like on the highlights in terms of the skill to score that, it just felt like it was going to come when we're in the position we are at the minute. Team low on confidence, team struggling, not really much, looking a bit rudderless, I think. And it just felt like it was going to happen.
You say about us squandering good chances, possibly due to a lack of confidence. And the Farnborough goal, was it Miller, Matthews, Lewis, fantastic back heel. And of course, Reece, what's his name, down at Dorking early in the week. He got their winner with a back heel. It's confidence, improvisation, and we are sadly lacking anything like that at the moment. Can you come up with some good points, Lee?
I wasn't there. That's a great point. That's my only sort of positive takeaway from the whole thing. What a novelty, though, to sort of sign someone and actually play him. I mean, under the Ian Allinson days, he'd be sitting on a bench like the week before he's got to go back, and then he'd maybe get shoved on for half an hour. So, I mean, there's that, I guess. To reiterate what Jake said, we look very robotic. You know, we just don't know how to. Our game management is really poor at the minute. I think just across the board, over the 7 games we've had, we are trying. There's not a lack of effort. It's just a lack of cohesion and just a lack of calm. It's bewildering, Tabs. How many times we're not really punishing the fact that we're getting these chances. I mean, and look, if it was a younger member of the squad, you think, okay, perhaps, whatever. But this is like Zane Banton and Sean Jeffers, you know, players who've scored goals religiously for us in the past. So maybe something just isn't right at City, and we've got to address it sooner rather than later.
Well, you're saying about missing chances. We're not creating chances really this season. If we get 3 in a game, we're doing well. Well, and we're not. Well, some games we're not even getting that. It is pathetic, our lack of creativity. I still think it goes back to poor shopping during the summer. We were too intent on just keeping the ball instead of getting players who can create things. And this is what it's left us with. If the players don't score from a few chances that come their way, they're not going to get any more chances. It's not like we set up to create a lot of chances, so you stick, a third away, half of them away. We've got to stick them all away. Otherwise, we're not going to be competing in games. And that's what's happening at the moment. We might as well bring it in, go straight on to Tuesday in some respects, because it's a similar story. Farnborough, I will say one thing about them. Considering they won their first 3 games of the season, that was their 4th win in 6, they're not that impressive. It's a bit difficult to say it when you only got 1 point from 7 games or whatever it is. But we were not that impressive. They were not that impressive, but they did enough to beat us again. Going on to last night, well, the best news, it was Zane Banton's 200th league game for the club. I said before the game, Jay, I sent you a team sheet. You replied, no Sean Shields for Tunbridge. And I said, he wouldn't be needed. I was only joking. But they didn't need him, did they? They stepped it up in the second half after a pretty even low-key first half, and they were comfortable winners.
Yeah, first half, positive. And we were competitive. It's at that point in the minute where I'm quite happy that we were competitive. I mean, our only shot on target, I think, was Joe Partington free kick from halfway, if not our own half, which almost caught the keeper out, so that was nice. But yeah, when you see Tonbridge without Sean Shields and also Scott Wagstaff, who is a massive part of their team, their captain, experienced EFL footballer, when you see them, and like you said, they didn't really need them to beat us. That's the worry at the minute, isn't it? Before we go into the game fully, that's the worry. We're losing and dropping points against teams that don't look great. I know Dorking have got a big budget. They didn't look great, did they? Farnborough don't look great, but they've got a reasonable points tally. We're losing to teams that aren't having to play well to beat us at the minute. And that's a real red flag, I think, in terms of the game state and how we're looking in terms of organisation at the minute. Because it's not like it'd almost be more comfortable if we were losing 5-0 every week, because then you can see, right, this team is properly bad. We've built here. But we're losing 1-2-0 against teams that don't look great, maybe aren't going to do a lot this season. They might do. But I think it just shows how far we're off the pace in terms of gameplay at the minute, unfortunately.
There were echoes of the Maidstone game, first game of the season. Even first half, they stepped it up. Second half, we couldn't. So either the players aren't switching on the pitch, or on the bench, someone is not noticing what's going on and able to make the right changes and change our style or our tempo or something. And these teams know, well, we've contained them. We can now go on and win this game.
Yeah, that's a good point, and it feeds. So we had quite a lot of questions this week, and we'll drop them in where we can. But one supporter's tweeted us saying, "What does Nobby say at half time?" I watched last week's pod, and you all agreed that at Chesham and Dorking, sorry, we were pretty bad after the break. I didn't go to Farnborough, but last night was very much the same again in terms of a poor second half performance. What is going on? And it happened versus Maidstone as well. What is causing it? Is it the halftime team talk? Is it tactically something going on? I think it's a good question.
Yeah, I'll go back to the point I made earlier. I think it was forwards. They're carrying the can for us not scoring goals, but they've been hung out to dry. And until we get a proper midfield that can create chances, and you've got players out there who should be able to do it, but they're not doing it at all. I don't want to name individual ones. I picked on them in the past already this season. But it's true. Forwards, whether we've got Ken Charles up there, whether we've got Sean Jeffers, whether we got Sam Meeks running around, but they're just not getting anything creative on a regular basis, putting sides under pressure. So their chances to score are very, very limited.
They are. Sean really struggled yesterday in terms of any service, didn't he? And the service he did have was mostly long balls pumped forward that a couple he held on to. But again, there weren't the men around him to then support him with those off balls. And you talk about we're lacking players. I mean, someone like Iffy Allen maybe could add a bit of energy to this team potentially, but he's out injured. We don't have anyone else in the squad that is able to do it at the minute. We maybe have players that should be able to, but they don't seem to be doing it. And I think, again, the worry back of that question is when a team sort of gets a sniff of an initiative against us in the second half, especially, we just seem to just step back into ourselves and we're happy to sort of allow them to press onto us, and we don't have a way of getting out. We started that second half last night okay. We had a 5-10 minute spell where Jack James had a shot that actually, looking back on Tom Bridges' highlights, he probably should have crossed because there was at least one or two City men in the goal mouth. After that, though, Tom Bridge stepped up, they took control. We had a mad 5 minutes where we seemed to clear everything into their men in our own box. And then that was it. It was almost the game was done at that point because we had no ability to fight back.
You said about clearing straight to the Tunbridge players. When we started doing our passing around inside the 6-yard box with these stupid goal kicks where Joe Partington normally plays it across the face of a goal to Michael Johnson, and it's then up to him, the goalkeeper, to play the ball out. Why isn't it the other way around? Because straight away, Tunbridge knew we put pressure on them. So they were charging down on Michael Johnson. And you can blame the coaches again, I think, and the manager. They didn't change it in the second half. So he was pressured, and yeah, as you say, he had 2 clearances charged down. Well, we just don't learn at all. We do not learn one bit. Poor old MJ. He flapped a bit of that first cross, didn't he, for the goal, which I think was then actually turned in by Chinadu for an own goal rather than the Tunbridge guy scoring it.
Yeah, quite unfortunate on Chinadu, who again I thought last night was okay. I didn't think he was terrible by any means, and I think, like you said, Dave, I think he actually looks a positive out of these last 2 games, and potentially, if we can keep him for longer than 28 days, could be quite important at the back at the minute. But yeah, MJ wasn't his finest moment, was it? That first goal, it was almost some sort of strange Superman dive that saw him just miss the ball completely. It wasn't good, was it? And it had come in that spell of we've just lost our composure, our ability at all to play out. And they'd had a free kick that hit the post, and then Jamie Fielding had tapped in that MJ looked like he'd got a touch to, but the pressure was all Tonbridge. And unfortunately, we just didn't have any way to battle it. And we just sat back, accepted it, and that goal almost felt inevitable at that point.
Hey, it certainly did. We were saying it where I was. In fact, that disallowed goal, Jamie Fielding, the former Saint, I'd like to see it from a camera dead in line because that was a pretty tight decision. But anyway, maybe we deserved a little bit of luck. The second goal, of course, also went through MJ's legs, but no fault there. That was just unlucky, that one. Good shot. What did you pick up from the game, Lee?
Well, not very much, because I tried to listen on Radio Verulam or Mix 92.6, whatever it's called today. But the feed went down. So it tells you something when the radio station couldn't even be asked to send people to the ground. You got 2 fellas watching the feed and then relaying this back over the airways. The feed went down and hilarity ensued. these two fellas, and I did feel for them. They were stuck in the studio and they were sort of trying to think of something to say, and it got onto their favourite colours and their favourite Spice Girls and whatnot. And then thankfully the feed sort of popped back up again, and away they went. But the language they used was quite damning. It was quite despondent, and they obviously echoed the thoughts of you two boys, where just didn't get it going, and it's almost gave the impetus to the opposition, because they could just sniff that we were just spineless at times, and I think which is one of the words that they used, and giving away free kicks, unnecessary free kicks in dangerous areas, which was and we've done it time and time again. That was the one thing that really hurt them as well. So it didn't sound like a great game, and to be honest with you fellas, it's just another notch on the bedpost for what has been a terrible season.
I'm glad you brought up there, Lee, about the free kicks in dangerous positions. Think about our games this season. Was it 7 league games? How many free kicks have we had around the edge of the opposition penalty area? Virtually none. That highlights how little attacking we are doing, how little pressing we are doing. Because that's part and parcel of the game. You expect at least 1, maybe 2 a game, round about that. And we're just not getting them. That highlights how we're not getting forward, how defensively set up we are, or whatever. But to me, it just highlights something is very much wrong with the way we approach games.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, actually. A really good point. And like yesterday in that first half, we looked competitive, which was a positive for me. But when we went forward, we didn't actually look that dangerous, to be honest. It was real scraps. We had a couple of corners which were okay. Their keeper looked a bit flappy at one. We never really tested him again after that. And yeah, going down, especially Jack James down that right-hand side, he had a couple of balls in, but it really wasn't much. But they compare it to Tonbridge and their width down both sides and how they fizzed their low crosses into the box almost every time. And every time it looked dangerous, even if a lot of the time it maybe wasn't a great cross. It gave that perception that Tonbridge were on the front foot and at least putting balls in that maybe a striker's going to latch onto. Unfortunately, those balls were never going to get anywhere for City near Sean Jeffers.
No, I think they're true. And when we look at the bench again last night, all right, Kieran Gauthier came on. We've also still got there Nick Ralph and James Bone. We're just not feeling this player. No offence to them, but they know they've got no experience at this level. We got no depth in that squad still. I do seriously believe the club intention during the summer was to get us strong, maybe 13 or so, and then get loan players in once we get going. So the way we've built the side up in recent years, and I think that must have been the plan, because if that wasn't the plan, then our summer shopping looks even more disastrous.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair to Tonbridge, in reading their match report, they said their average age was 23 last night, which is, young, but it's not your 17, 18-year-olds out the academy, is it? It was players that they've brought in from bigger clubs, I think, generally. So I saw that they brought in a young lad last night from the Charlton Academy that they signed in the summer. It's that quality player. They may not be very old or experienced, but they're at least exciting and young and have some experience, be it at bigger club or in academy football at a higher level. Unfortunately, we're relying on players that just don't have that much experience, apart from a couple of Hart Senior Cup appearances.
Yeah, well, we haven't really mentioned Nobby yet, but we've got to move on to him. David Noble, people openly questioning his position, a lot of people calling for him to go, and it's hard to launch a case in his defence. It's our lowest points total ever after 7 games of the season. 1 win in 15 National League South games. That includes the end of last season under John Meeks and the first 7 games of this season. That is relegation nailed in. Nobby, his last 13 league games, 6 with Wealdstone, 7 with us. 2 draws, 11 defeats, 2 points out of 33. His last 23 league games, 15 points out of 69, just 3 wins. Can anybody launch a defence for him remaining in the post?
Okay, so I've got 2 sort of beacons of light, if you like. Everything you've said there is absolutely spot on. And I think if this run happens at any other point further along the line in the season, he's gone without a shadow of a doubt. The first sort of shining light is the fact that Salvation, it's quite early on in the season and there's time to rectify it. I know it's not a great start. No one's trying to sort of, paper over those, but there is time. There still is time. The second thing I would say is the players. We have the players. These aren't relative unknowns, that we've got playing for us. These are established, successful players at this level and above. I think when the signings were announced over the course of the summer, there was general excitement because I think it identified a need, and these were good players we'd heard of, and it was exciting. I mean, to be fair, I'm watching the post matches, and last night's was just the icing on the cake. There looked a man so out of his depth. It was hugely uncomfortable to watch, and that says something with a David Noble post-match interview. I think he looks bereft of ideas. I think the job is at his head. It's not over his head, but the water is at his head. I think he doesn't fill you with the greatest amount of confidence that he knows how to get out of it. I don't believe he has the answers. There's a lot of, I don't know. It was a lot of uncertainty in his mannerisms, the language he was using. I think, look, David Noble isn't going to walk out of this job by his own accord. I think he's going to be given time, but ultimately, if the run continues, that luxury is going to be taken out of his hands because I don't believe the owners are going to sit by and give him as much leeway as he thinks he is. Because the thing is, you can't have this, Tabs. This is relegation form. We could be this season's Havant and Waterlooville if we're not careful, or Dartford. No team is too big and or too good to go down. And you've only remember when we sat here a year ago and we laughed at the start that Havant made. We were where the jokes were sort of coming out. But I'll tell you what, it's not so funny now because there's a general realization that this could be the way it's going to go if something does not change. And I mean, like now. Yes, for sure, we've had injuries, of course. But I wouldn't say they were debilitating enough that we can't, create chances and score goals and be competitive with the teams we've played. I think this has to stop somewhere. It's got to stop with the coaching staff. I think they have tried to change it a little bit. They have tried to look at two up front, and they've tried to fill the midfield, and they've tried the wing backs, and they've tried the middle, and just hasn't happened. And I don't know whether that's just the players aren't reacting to what they've been told. I honestly don't think there's a realization just how important a situation they're currently in. It's only September, the first week of September, yes, but once that rot sets in, Havant and Dartford found it extremely hard to get out of it. And I think it's a really, really tricky situation now. I believe he's got a little bit of time, but probably not as much as what he thinks he has.
It's interesting what you say about Havant and Dartford, because people said they can't go down. Of course, they both did go down. And now it's St Albans City and Maidstone United. Their only win this season was at Clarence Park. They got stuffed 5-1 at home, was it last night? Unbelievable money they're spending. At least we're going down a bit cheaper. Are we going to be the two clubs to replace ones that happened last year? It shouldn't happen, but it could. Some other good points you made there, Lee, and they passed me by, so Jake's going to pick up on them.
I think on Lee's point about how much time does he have. So we've had a couple of questions about that today, actually, including one from a former City player. Like, how much time does David Noble have in post before a change inevitably happens? I know it's been a discussion topic amongst quite a few fans recently. Is it Saturday before the FA Cup game? Is it Saturday and the FA Cup game? Is it longer than that? What happens? We haven't mentioned we've got Needham Market in the FA Cup next Saturday, which if anyone missed that, how long does David Noble have, do you think?
I think he's got those two games. Ian Anderson, when he got sacked 2 years ago, he had 12 points from 9 games. Nobby can get a maximum of 7. So if he's judged by the same criteria, he's out the door. I'm not sure what he will be, but that's what could happen. One thing I will say, a style of play under Nobby, I've always been highly critical of it because it's been non-stop passing sideways and backwards, very little going forward. I would say in recent games, that has changed quite a bit. We're not going back to the goalkeeper anywhere near as much as we used to, which is a positive thing. So that maybe I think you think we're playing further up the field, but we're not. We get to that midfield and it sticks there. But we are doing some longer balls from the back, which is good. Mix it up. Nothing wrong with that at all. But they're just not quality and not finding their men. And you just wonder how much work we do on this stuff during the week. If you're playing Tuesdays, you've only got one training session really, Thursday, so you can't work on it that much as a semi-pro club. But it's good to see they are making some changes and trying different things. They're not coming off, but at least they're trying. I'll give them some credit for that.
Yeah, they're not coming off. But the thing is, we don't, I think we've got an identity crisis at the minute. Are we strong enough and resolute enough to keep teams out and maybe scrape, a 1-0 win? No. Are we dynamic and free-flowing enough that we can take games to teams and win by outscoring them? No, we're not. I just don't know. I don't think we know what we are at the minute, apart from rubbish, but I just don't know. It's really hard because we're getting nothing from the manager. I genuinely don't believe he knows how to get out of this. I hope I'm wrong. Oh, God forsake, I hope I'm wrong because, a successful manager equals a successful team, equals a successful club. Everyone's happy. No one wants anyone to lose their jobs for crying out loud, but there's a tipping point, and quite frankly, pigeons learn faster than the rate of how this is sort of going. It's dangerous, Dave. We've seen it ourselves, mate, where we don't get a good start and things plummet and then the rot sets in. And then the thing is, what we're hoping for as fans, maybe we can get a point here. Maybe we get a point here and a point there. That's not good enough. It's not good enough because everyone's picking up points as well, right? Mm. So it's like we're a month further down the line. He spoke yesterday about, we're 7 points away from that's 7 points. We're lucky to get 7 shots on goal in a game, let alone 7 points from anywhere. I mean, it's ridiculous. I know there's urgency around this and it has to be addressed, right? But you boys must see this as well. I mean, yes, it's September. Maybe I'm being a bit dramatic, but ultimately, so it needs addressing, no?
You mentioned the interview last night, and from seeing that, you thought Nobby's not got the answers. And I think a lot of people have drawn a conclusion from that interview. The comments I've received today, he gets absolutely slated for that interview. He's done himself no favours at all. Because he's not coming across as a strong character who's in charge. Yes, I can get this right. He's not. Maybe that's his demeanour, so you can't change it, which is unfortunate. But the things he says do not give you any confidence. What do you got on this one, Jake?
I think you're right. I think the lack of confidence and I think coming away from last night, it wasn't actually an angering experience for me. It was a sad experience walking away from that ground after that second half display last night. And then I thought the fans were great last night. The fans were great at the end. The fans were very supportive and trying to G the boys up. And a lot of clubs wouldn't have that. There's been comments about fans in recent weeks, but there's a lot of fans supporter groups that would have booed off those fans, like those players last night, and been very annoyed with them. But the fans are trying to get behind them. But then, as you said, you watched David Noble's post-match, and I thought it was a little bit more honest in parts, which I did appreciate. But at the same point, it just didn't give you any confidence at all, really, unfortunately. And he needs to be out there. He needs to be braver in what he's saying. He needs to be strong in what he's saying and trying to come across as a strong character. We know he can do that. Dave, you reported on his post-match changing room comments last week that many Saints fans heard. We know he can show that strong character, maybe not to that maximum regard, but he can show something. So he needs to come out and do that. Because the fans want to get behind the team. The fans want to support the team and him. But we need to see something, like Lee says, a bit different going into the next game, probably the next two.
I agree with you about supporters last night, Jake. There were more there than I expected. after what's happened in recent weeks. And they did well. They did get behind the team pretty much all the games. Only late on when it had really gone away from us, as it went a bit quieter. So full marks for them for that. They did really well. As another thing on my Nobby interviews, going back to Saturday, he said something which I don't think helped his cause at all. He said up until Saturday, we'd been the better side in all the games. Well, when you come out with something like that, you just make people think you're deluded. You're not looking at what is actually going on out there. And come on, be a bit more honest than that, because yeah, that's taking supporters for a fault. Or maybe because the owners haven't been to any of the recent games, he's trying to let them know, yeah, we are playing well, we're just being unlucky. They probably know a bit better than that.
Look, say what you want about the owners, and I'm sure people have said plenty. You know, they're not idiots, right? They do actually generally want the best for this team, but they must see the underlying fact is the fact we are in the lower echelons of this table. We've not played well consistently over the course of the first seven games. We're not scoring bundles of goals. We're not keeping goals out. It's not a good look at the minute. It's just not a good look, and it needs addressing, right? The fans got behind the team, Taz, because the fans are behind the team. We're not talking about the fleeting fans who come, the 30, 40 who come from Watford or whoever and start, ranting and raving and shouting expletives. The fans of this club are behind the team, and they're behind David Noble, and they will continue to do so until the people in the boardroom say that's it, there's no more, because that's the only way that things are going to change. What I would say is we travel up and down the country. You can absolutely bet Needham Market will take a good handful of fans, because that's what we do. We support the team. And I think because we do support them, we get irate when things aren't going well. But there's things aren't going well, and then there's the start of the season that we've had to date. I think there's a bit of there's a slight tipping point there. But look, it's do or die now for Nobby, right? Because if we don't get anything on Saturday and then we go out of the cup on the next weekend, that's got to be up. That's got to be time up for him, because I don't see a way how after 9-10 games he's going to fix it. Because if he hasn't managed to do it up until this point, then what confidence have we got of him taking it further than that?
You mentioned earlier on, Jake, about the next two games. Western-super-Mare, they've now won 5 on the trot. We've lost 5 on the trot. Needham Market in the FA Cup, they just got promoted to their highest level ever. After an indifferent start, they won their last 2 games, went to Hereford last night, inflicted their first defeat of the season on them.
Good result.
Yeah, very good result. I mean, in many respects, Joe, these couldn't be 2 tougher games, could they? It is now time for the players to stand up, because they know Nobby's days are numbered.
Yeah, it's not the FA Cup draw I think the club or Nobby would have wanted, is it, at all? A tough fixture. And like you said, Dave, the players do have to step up. The players were talking to the fans at Dorking away, after those comments were made. And they said, we're behind Nobby, get behind Nobby as well. You've got to start performing like that to some extent. The football's not been great, has it, at all? Some players are really underperforming at the minute, it's fair to say. Some big names as well throughout the team. And I think this actually leads to something I was thinking about earlier, is where are the leaders on the pitch at the minute? There's, on the sideline, whatever, but where's the leaders on the pitch that are trying to change things? I'm not seeing them at the minute myself. Maybe Joe Partington, maybe, but apart from that, I'm not seeing it. It's a real struggle, and you've got these players have got to step up. They've got to, whatever David Noble does, because unfortunately, we need to start picking up points somewhere and somehow, desperately.
Well, have these players got it in them to bring out the creativity we need to give the forwards a chance to get some goals, or are we going to continue to be a possession-based side? And as we've shown, that gets us nowhere.
We can be possession-based, but you can do it in an exciting way, I think, at least. And I think the midfield is actually a big issue of this. We've talked about the midfield quite a bit this season in terms of we need the midfield to step up. And I think maybe Deadfield and Payne, are they too similar? Is there not quite a balance there at the minute? Are we missing just someone like George Hoddle? Last season, our best parts of last season were George Hoddle in midfield, right? When he was bursting forward, running around looking to get balls in behind constantly, winning the ball, winning these tackles. We don't really have someone like that at the minute, and maybe the players that should be doing it aren't. So do we need a change there? Imagine someone like George Hoddle, I think, would instantly step up into this team in this midfield and would make things look much better. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, a lone player, that's what we need, Jake. Yeah, anybody who can get forward and put a good ball forward. Doesn't get it and look sideways and backwards straight away. He knows what's up front and he looks for runs to put the players in there. Somebody can get down the wing and put a good cross in, not lose the ball cheaply at the moment, which we do when we go down there. Because we desperately lack a quality for the forwards to feed off.
Okay, so let's look forward, right? We've got Western at home on Saturday. Are we realistically thinking to ourselves, right, we've got to get 3 points out of this? Or are we now of the mentality, the defeatist mentality that we'll settle for a point because a point on the board is, is the least we can expect now, given the way we're playing? I mean, Tabs, you called it, mate. Pre-season preview show, you called it. You said Western-super-Mare were your dark horse, right? And I poo-pooed you underhand. And I've got to say to you, mate, hats off to you because they're storming. They've got some good players. I think Ruben Reed plays for them. Scores goals for fun. So Saturday's going to be tough, but they're all going to be tough when you're at the bottom of the bloody table.
Yeah,
and when confidence is so low, you've got a manager who can barely sort of galvanise himself, let alone the 15 people he's going to put out on the pitch at some point. The fans are going to arrive. Of course they will. They're going to be expectant and they're going to be hoping to see something. We don't expect a reaction. We need a reaction. We need a reaction on Saturday. Otherwise, things are going to go south quickly.
Well, I'd love to know what the conversations were with David Noble and his coaching staff and the scouting staff, who in my book have failed completely, for pre-season games. You two kept telling me we've got these big name, good signings, and we look a decent side on paper. We looked at really good, and I kept saying, I'm not seeing it in the friendlies. I'm not seeing it. We dismiss friendlies. It's not important. It's more about getting fit. But so I then wonder, what was Nobby saying? Yeah, it's not working, or he's going to plan or whatever. Because if they didn't spot it was wrong then, well, that tells you there's a problem in the dressing room straight away.
Fine, but I don't think anyone could expect the start we've had.
No, not that bad, no.
I still believe the players are there. Don't get me wrong. I still do. I think, look, Drake, your point, mate, you won't name names, but Rizzulo has been absolutely abysmal this season. Absolutely atrocious. Banton's been the least effective since his time here. Okay? Jeffers has had no spark at all. Yes, he scored a goal, but that you couldn't really miss it. It was 2 yards out. They've tried him with Jeffers. They've tried it with Charles and without Charles. They've started with Jeffers on the bench coming on. They have been looking at various ways of sort of trying to feed all these really good players into the side, but it isn't working. And the balance has got to be struck by the management team. But time isn't running out, but patience certainly is.
Yeah, I have a point about that lot is fair, except we've touched on many times already tonight. The quality up to those players just isn't there. They're expected to stick away. They're one chance a game they get. And it won't happen. It simply won't happen.
No, I mean, did Sean Jeffers have a sniff of any chances last night, Dave? I don't think he did he? So, and I think one positive side in the summer, I think David Longking looks all right at the back. I think he looks okay. I think he's not really cost us any goals. He's looked reliable when especially he's already had a changing defence alongside him, and he's having to do quite a bit of work in terms of covering Joe Partington, who I think it's fair to say also hasn't had his greatest spell for the Saints in the last few weeks. I know he's had the injury, but he's struggled a little bit at times. And if you look at that team, could you actually pinpoint who's actually had a good season so far? No one really. And I agree with Lee. I think we have got players there to have a decent season. So does the problem stem deeper than that? Is it a fundamental issue behind the players that is causing this? I don't know. But when you look at the team, I think we've got a reasonable team, not enough depth. but also these players do need to step up as well. If they're players that were getting promoted last season or doing good things for City last season, why not now? And if it's another reason, then so what? Step up anyway and have some pride in your own performance and displays on the pitch.
Yeah, and hopefully they will, starting on Saturday.
Yeah. I mean, we'll say this, we'll win Saturday and it'll be great, won't it?
I mean, is it any wonder why I have to have a beer to come onto this pod? Seriously. I mean, it's just, everyone said, I need it. Seriously. It's horrendous. Anyway, boys, come on. Prediction time.
Well, one thing I would say about Nobby, as a player, I loved him as a player. As a man, I enjoyed his... I don't talk to him very often now. Well, never at all nowadays. But when I used to speak to him, enjoyed his company. He's good to get on with. But as a manager, no, I don't think he's got it. And that's, of course, what he's judged by now. It'd be nice to say he has got it, but I don't think he has. John Lackwood sent an email in saying, decent man, time to do the honourable thing. And so you've had similar things as well.
Yeah, but it's not a personal thing against Nobby.
No,
we love him. We've said this time after time. But to be honest with you, you know, how much more can we endure? How much more can the owners endure? Because they're not, you know, they must see what we see. Lawrence is there at most home games. You know, he wasn't happy, was he, after the Chesham game? So, but the thing is, now you've got to really turn this around for those whispers and those sort of small murmurings of discontent to go away completely. Yeah, okay. If we get a win, great. But then after the next defeat, you know what I mean, they come back again and back again, and we've really got to rejuvenate our season for any of those whispers to completely disperse.
You confident Saturday, Ben Lee? Your prediction?
Look at that face.
I am confident there's going to be a reaction of sorts, David. I mean, this isn't me being coy, but I think I would happily take a point at the minute, if I'm honest with you. We are that out of sorts, mate. We're that out of sorts. And Western are a good side, or seem to be a good side, and they're in fifth, or at least in the playoff places. Yeah, draw 1-0, hopefully.
1-0. Jake?
Lee Stolen must score. I'll go.
Say it.
No.
Say it.
2-2, but I am worried. And how do we actually get a result on Saturday? I don't know. They beat a good Slough team last night, didn't they, as well? I mean,
we scored 2 goals, mate? That's what I'm going to ask you.
Yeah. Why did I say that?
I don't know.
Oh God. Like how do we actually get a result on Saturday? Is it just a case of sitting back, going defensive, packing the midfield, trying to?
We haven't got the players for that, mate.
No.
Have we?
Yeah. What did you go for in the end? 2-2.
2-2, unfortunately. Do we just stick to the plan at the minute? Do we just stick to that and see if it works on Saturday?
But seriously, how can we do that? It's not been working for the last 7 games. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Is there an argument that we go sod it and we just sort of really take it to them, like really sort of take it to them?
Well, it could be said. We felt this under Nobby's first reign. The players were constrained because he wanted them to keep the possession. So we never truly saw how good they were. Are we seeing the same thing again? I don't think so. The midfield there, they look like defensive players. They don't look like attack-minded players. But maybe if we tried that, it'll start bringing the best out of Rasulu. And Castiglione out on the wing, maybe he will start producing as well. But at the moment, we're not. We're flat out on the flanks.
Right, so playing devil's advocate, and I'm not saying that this is right, but what happened after Nobby left the first time? Under Mixie, we started playing a bit more expansive.
Yeah.
You know, the way, okay, this is a one-off and we're talking about it because it's relevant, the way we tore Torquay apart, or a very bad Torquay side, but then to follow it up with good results, but also the away game at Maidstone. You know, we proved there that we can mix it, you know, and we can leave something in on someone, and we can fight, and, you know, we can win the battles in the middle of a part which needed winning, and then we can go on and win the game subsequently because of that. You know, we can show that once David left the first time, players like the Shackles, they were just playing without the weight of the world on their shoulders. And all right, it fell away towards the end, but I think that's another argument. But for that small amount of time, those exact same players, they were producing majestic stuff. So, you know,
Yeah,
I'm not saying...
What happened? What happened, Lee? Did they perform for John Meeks, or did they just perform for themselves to say, "Look, Nobby, we are good players," or was it just coincidence? Because they went on a terrific run. Oh, at the end of the season, 8 games, 5 points. As you say, fell away. Well, it collapsed, and
It did
it just
collapse.
continued into the start of this season.
Yeah, but, you know, I think that Nobby has got a way of playing, and I think it is very sort of tight. It's very sort of skill-based led, you know, in terms of just the ball retention. That's fine, but we're so slow and lethargic in getting from A to B. You know, there's so many different facets to the way that Nobby wants to play. Whereas the way we played once he left, the players really did sort of step up to plate. They went out there with their heads up high and their chests out, and we played some really good stuff for a short period of time. Hopefully we can replicate that, but with Nobby still at the helm. I think something needs to change at the top and work its way down.
Yeah. I was gutted Jamie Fielding's goal was disallowed last night because my 3-0 would have come in with that. But for Saturday, well, it's a law of average, isn't it? One on run of 5 defeats, one run on a run of 5 wins. So 2-0 City.
Hey, there you go. I mean, not being funny, but suddenly a win and Saturday, and suddenly everything just looks that little bit, gives you another few weeks, doesn't it, of breathing space? If you do get a win Saturday, gives you something like Lee says, even if it seems unlikely at the minute. Football is such a stupid game that doesn't make sense a lot of the time.
It is a stupid game.
It is.
Stupid football.
Why do we bother? Why?
Right, we've got some other points to chuck in. First one's to do with David Noble, actually. He's joined a coaching staff of a academy company called Valenti Academy, which is run by John Bowery, brother of Dan Bowery, and I believe Dean Austin is highly involved in it as well. So Nobby is now assisting with that. Be interested to see what happens there. We know a date for Hitchin Town away in the Hearts Charity Cup. That's on the 8th of October, as we set about defending a trophy we won just a few weeks ago. And through the post yesterday, I received this, which will mean nothing to you two at all. It's a badge for Colton FC, the former youth team for St Albans area. It started in the Second World War, disbanded early 80s. Heck of a lot of first team players for St Albans City. That's come from Trevor Jackson, lives up in Loughborough. I went up to see him in the summer. He played for Colton in the mid-50s. And that badge will soon be on the history website and the Colton page, which I keep saying is one of the most viewed pages on the history site.
And if you see a man running around late at night with that badge on, you know it's David. So
that's that badge on? I mean, that's a thought, right?
Oh, dear. Anything else, Dave?
I think we've suffered enough, haven't we?
What I would say, this is we've had an amazing response in terms of questions this week. Do keep them coming in. Jake has spent the whole half an hour reading through them all. So if you want to get in touch with us, please continue to do so. We love reading everything you've got to say, good and bad. Jacob, how do I get in touch, mate?
Yeah, Podful of Saints is Twitter, email in the description below. Apologies if we didn't get to all your questions. We had a lot. Some of them may be more relevant in coming weeks. We don't know. But thank you for all of them, and thank you all for the views on the last couple of episodes as well. Really appreciate it. And we will speak to you again next week after the Saints play Western Superman. No predictions. We'll see what happens. Come on, you Saints. Bye-bye, everyone.